Yeah, that is the final score from Brisbane, 23-17. It's finished on the Australians breaking that 6-match losing streak. For the South Africans, unfortunately, not too much to write home about, and it's certainly going to get tougher for the boys to keep their heads up after that. Well, we've got a couple of serious-looking faces in studio. I don't even know what to ask you guys. I've been looking at Twitter. There's a lot of things that have been mentioned on social media. I'm not going to repeat a lot of them, John, but it was a good start. I mean, we had those 2 quick tries, and for a moment, for the briefest moment, we thought they're onto something, and it just seemingly fell apart.
Yeah, look, if you only take the first 40 minutes, there I think there were definitely some areas where we played well and we put pressure on the opposition. Unfortunately, the second half, we never looked like we were going to score a try. We started the half quite poorly, and I think at the end the yellow card also had an impact on the end result. So not a good second half, and if you want to be winning international games, you have to have the ability to play very competitive rugby for 80 minutes, and certainly if we don't do that next week, you know, we're going to be in for a very big surprise.
Yeah, let's take a look at that yellow card while we continue to talk through this match. Nick, I know you don't want to say anything about the game. I'm going to put you in anyway. But as John says, this would have added to the pressure. There were a couple of high takes as well, which wouldn't necessarily penalise as stringently as they could have been from either side. So we can't necessarily blame one over the other.
I'm just concerned about the fact that I think it's a poor Australian side. They've been shown up by New Zealand and by England at home. They're a side lacking confidence, and it was an opportunity that we had today, especially going 14-3 up, to perhaps get a win away from home, which would have been outstanding. The problem was these 2 teams and Argentina are around about the same standard, but compared with what they're going to face next week against New Zealand, it's like night and day. The New Zealanders do not miss opportunities that both these teams today missed. They have players who are far classier, they have far better decision makers and better leaders. And we said before the game that both teams were under pressure, both coaches were under pressure. It was going to be a desperate game. I thought both teams tried hard. You know, it was a good little battle between 2 B division sides. It wasn't as though they're not playing for the championship of the world at the moment. They're just trying to fight their way out of a corner. And South Africa, unfortunately, came out second best today. It was, Australia created more opportunities than we did. And what concerned me, if I can just finish off with, I think in order to win test matches, you have to have good decision makers, people who take control of a game. 9, 10, inside centre, number 8, number 2, your spine of your team. And I think we've got fairly quiet, inexperienced players in those positions at the moment.
And unfortunately, when a loss like this happens, Naas, you have to ask questions with regard to selection. You have to look at a scrum half playing on the wing, at a fullback playing at centre. It wouldn't have been an issue had we won, and won handsomely, but unfortunately, you've got to look at those selections.
Yeah, it's a battle at the moment. We didn't play well. I don't think Australia actually played that well. They had more opportunities. They created a little bit more. But we showed at half-time, how we in front of the ball the whole time, instead of supporting the ball carrier and getting ourselves in better positions. Whoever has got the ball, make sure that the next guy is in a better position. We don't see that. We've seen in the last 10 minutes on a number of occasions players going into the tackle and lose the ball going forward, and knock on. And just in general, it's really a struggle at the moment. And you feel for the player a little bit because, I think they all would like to play better.
They're trying as hard as they can.
Unfortunately, it's not really up to the standard. If we want to be number 2 in the world, then we really need an effort, and that's what we don't really see. What amazed me, and I'm not a forward, but one scrum we scrum them off the ball. The next scrum they scrum us off the ball, and I don't understand that. It's like we sometimes believe we don't really can control the game. It's like, let's see. If we do it once, it works. And the next time, instead of doing it again and again and make something positive out of it, It's like we stand around and check a little bit and watch what they're going to do, so we might react instead of we play.
Guys, are we stuck between two worlds? I mean, Ashwin, you do see at times the Boks try and revert back to a more controlled, I suppose, more traditional, in inverted commas, game. But even then, we don't necessarily see them string together too many rolling balls, which we've previously bemoaned, but it would have been nice to see 1 or 2 tries come via that route. We almost seem as though we're floating between what it is we want to achieve and almost not even quite going back to what we used to do.
Well, I think if you look at this game, that there was a wonderful maul that the Boks tried to set up right towards the end of it, and I think that showed that the ability to maul from the Boks, it's there. But we saw how the Australians were able to stop an effective maul the Boks were setting up. If you look at the pack weights, we saw that Australia outweighed us in terms of the weight size when it comes to scrum time. So I think that physical dominance, the size, the big players that we've always been used to, all of a sudden we no longer has that as an advantage over whoever we play. This is a classic game where when we lost against Argentina, we were able to complement the Argentine team for the manner within which they played. I think today, unfortunately, was an uninspiring performance from both teams, the way with which they played. And for the Boks, I feel as if though we're making it so hard for ourselves. There was an instance where Peter Steph, the toy, had the ball, went in, and we lost it towards the end of the game. If that was just given to the player right next to him, which was Eben Etzebeth, so sifted on one more phase, and all of a sudden you find that there's less defenders who are able to get in. But we've talked about our defence in recent weeks, and I think today, again, is an example of how our defence is a concern for the Boks. We scored 2 tries, they scored twice against us. Right in the beginning, I think we were 14 3 points ahead of them and allowed them back in with 2 tries. Now, the first try they scored, if we go back to that specific clip, we'll see that it was from a set piece. They were able to start the set piece, and then they folded towards the open side. When the ball came back to the blind side, it was only Brian Abana on the blind side trying to call the players to come out. That's a defensive error. It's a system error on defense. Now, we can't afford to have that. The second try they scored, pick up and go right next to the ruck. All of a sudden, when the ball came wide, the very first time, they just ran straight through. That is communication error on defense. Now, it's systematic errors that should easily be fixable. Nick, as a coach at this level, John, as a player at this level, same Naas, you see, as to how easy it should be able to fix those errors. But defense, big question mark for us at this stage.
No, this was our first try, and we were very encouraged by the start. I think if you have a look on the board, it's in the first 2 minutes of the game. Really good forward momentum. Again, here's confusion, as Naas pointed out, 2 forwards in front of the ball carrier. But still, our ball carrying is good and accurate. We clear a ruck quickly. And, going forward, a good little pick and go. Australia really at 6s and 7s here. And it's a magnificent angle after this ruck, I think. But again, a player in front of Elton Jantjies. Another referee might blow that as obstruction. And here, forwards taking it to the line. But this was an excellent line by Warren Whiteley. We've seen him score a few tries like that for Australia.
And Nick, if you look at the body positioning from Warren Whiteley, how he got into position in order to run into the gap. So that putting yourself into space without the ball is something that the players will also have to be focused on in this Boks team at this stage.
Well, it's as I said, there was a lot of momentum in this move, but there were a lot of players who were out of position, and we would have even done better. But you're quite right. Warren Whiteley starts almost outside Francois Lowe, and Francois goes on a bit of a drift there, and in comes Warren on the short line, running at a scrum off, and a number 8 should be able to score from that position. But we did have a very encouraging start. Remember our second try, though, came from an Australian error where Foley took it far too flat and then tried to throw a skip pass, and we had Strauss intercept it, and from there we managed to get to 14 points ahead. So that was an occasion. Had Australia played slightly better, we were in a desperate situation if Foley had got a pass away slightly earlier, which is why I say both teams made errors today. Both teams made tactical errors and individual errors. Our tactical error, Jean, in my opinion, were persisting with up and unders on Folau. And Folau didn't drop any up and under today. He's one of the best players in the world under an up and under. Why don't we target their weakest receiver of an up and under? They were using Cooper on the wing because they worried about his defence at 10. So off any set phase, he was going to the wing. You know, why don't we then manipulate perhaps a kick onto the open side winger, which he'll have to take? I don't think he's quite as good under the high ball. Or chips and grubbers, bring Folau forward as opposed to an up and under where his aerial skills are very good.
Yeah, I think that is where we tactically probably got it wrong a bit today with our kicking play and being stuck in our own half most of the game. So if we're a little bit smart, and that's why I mentioned before the game as well, if we, just because it's wet doesn't mean we only have to kick off 9 and 10. Yeah. Sometimes you have to maybe take the ball a bit wide, bring the fullback up and then kick on a guy that's not as good in the air, or put it on the ground and put pressure on them there. So unfortunately we didn't get that right today. And a good point that you also made was when we did have the ball in hand, and Warren did it so well with that try, we were static a lot of the time. So we played to a forward, but he's static. Whereas
not running onto it.
Not running onto it. Within Warren's case, he's actually got a good line and he's got momentum onto the ball. So those were definitely two areas that I thought we could have been much better. And the question is, how much time do we have to actually rectify it? And can we get it right for next week? Because if you're stuck in your own half for, 75 out of the 80 minutes, because I think the only time we really played well was the first part of the game where we scored the try, then it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, but John, tactically we're not playing a good game. Okay, because as we looked at a number of the up and unders, and go and just look at the last 15 years of rugby. You don't really kick up and unders to the Aussies. You can try the New Zealanders. They're a little bit jumpy on that. But Australia is very strong on that. We looked at a couple of times. We thought that let's break the advantage line by kicking across field. But then the ball is actually half going backwards instead of going. We're not putting the opposition under pressure.
I do think, however, it's identifying that space that is out wide, and maybe the execution of the kick is not good.
The one occasion where, sorry to interrupt, but that was when De Jong put a kick through, which was actually a really good kick, but the execution was just too long. Exactly. It just went into the end goal. It was scrum back. Had that been 15 metres shorter, we would have managed them to be able to put incredible pressure on their last player who would be covering onto that little grubber kick.
We talk about purposeful kicking as well, and I think Elton Jantjies, when he was able to get the ball from Adrian Strauss, to be able to put in that grubber for a Johan Poulsen to go through in order to go and score there. But I think one shining light for me in this team is actually Elton Jantjies, because here's a player, and if you look at the game that he plays, he's able to run with the ball in both hands, but now the support players, the timing of their runs, because we can see in the clips that we've actually shown how there were so many players running off the ball carrier, either in front. So they need to adapt as to how are they becoming an option to run those lines and give another player the ball behind their backs. But now they're not doing that. So it means that Alton becomes almost ineffective in the manner within which he's playing now. So we talk about depth on attack for the players to come, talking about selecting your right options as running lines when we do come to be those decoy runners. And that, I think, is there's no synchronicity between the guys not having the ball and the ball.
But this is what we have mentioned before about how your attack, you must understand and have a feeling for what the fly-off is trying to do. The Lions have got it. That's why Elton, when he plays for the Lions, they understand his running lines. They understand how to run as dummy runners. This Springbok side has had very little time together, and they haven't got the timing right. But I'm more worried from Elton's point of view, when you talk about a shining light. He is good on attack, but on defence he has not been good. He's missed 6 tackles before this game, and in both of the tries he was, especially in the second try, when he ran inside Peter Steff to Toy Foley, it's Elton who misses the tackle. So defensively, he must up his game.
And I agree with you on defence, and I think, Elton's defensive performance, I think that's indicative of the team and how the team as a team are defending. So I think defence is definitely something for next week that we'll have to fix as a Bok team against the All Blacks.
Well, that's the million-dollar question is, can they fix it, or are they now stuck in a position where selection isn't settled, because they did make the changes for this match? Are they going to make more for next weekend in Christchurch, which is a place I think we last played in 2007 in the lead-up to the Rugby World Cup with Jake White's second stringers. And we came close for 60 minutes and then they ran away with it. It's going to be a tough old battle next weekend. But thank you very much, gentlemen, to Jean, Nick, Naas and to Ashwin. There'll certainly be a lot more said in the magazine shows between now and then. Do join us. There's a lot to talk about. Use that hashtag #SSRugby. Send your suggestions to the various magazine shows. I'm pretty sure you want to get involved in the conversation as well. Hard luck to the Springboks. We do want to support, but unfortunately, a disappointing end to a very, very close encounter. It started off well, did not finish off in the manner that we expected. Well done to the All Blacks from earlier, proving once again that they are the team to beat with a magnificent win over Los Pumas, and it just means that next week will be all that much tougher for the Boks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.